What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Hockey Time here, back with another video. Today, just wanted to throw a quick video at you guys. Wanted to discuss the Money Puck playoff projections, or excuse me, playoff odds. They update these pretty regularly throughout the season, but I wanted to cover it before the season started, before, the number of points for each team starts coming into play, because these are kind of, in a sense, Money Puck's playoff predictions, right, where they think teams are going to finish. And again, they don't market it as that, of course. But yeah, just wanted to discuss these briefly with you guys. If you don't already, follow Money Puck on Twitter. They're a great follow. They provide a ton of data. And for people that are kind of number nerds like I am, it's definitely fun to follow them and see the kind of content they deliver. So just kind of go around the wheel here. It's going to be a pretty informal video, but it was interesting looking through for me on some of their thoughts on where certain teams are going to finish. So just going through here, I mean, Toronto seems pretty reasonable. The Habs, I don't think anyone expects them to make the playoffs. Florida, this one's interesting, right? So they have Florida slated as kind of the most likely team from the Atlantic to make the playoffs. For me, I think there's definitely a world where that can happen, right? If Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight have a good year, Tkachuk fills the hole that Huberdeau left. They're still going to be a very solid team, but will be interesting to see where they finish. But definitely interesting to see them slotted ahead of both the Maple Leafs and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Red Wings at 27%. Again, nothing really to comment on there. I think Ottawa and Boston here are pretty interesting as well. Obviously, a lot of people have different opinions on where Ottawa and Boston are going to finish. For those of you that watched my playoff predictions in the podcast episode recently, you'll know I have Ottawa in the playoffs, so I don't necessarily agree with the 27% chance, though they are, still a young team. Only a couple new guys that came in, but they are some pretty big pieces. So if I were to be, making my own version of this, I would probably have them a little bit higher. But again, I don't know exactly what data Money Puck's using, so would definitely love to get some of that info from them because, again, everyone's at 0 points right now, right? So I'm assuming this is mostly based on roster construction. But yeah, having Ottawa and Boston at that steep of a difference in playoff probability is interesting to me for sure. And then I think having Boston as close to teams like Tampa, Pittsburgh to make the playoffs is pretty interesting as well. I think they're going to struggle early in the year with their injuries, right? So again, another point where I'd love to see, what data they're using to compile these predictions. And then Buffalo to wrap up the Atlantic with 16.7. Again, nothing really to comment on there. I think that's pretty reasonable. On to the Metro. So the Metro is pretty tight in the middle, I think. Interesting that they have the Rangers at 48.3% for sure. I think a lot of people still expect the Rangers to be a very strong team. And then if you look just to the left here, they have the Devils at 63.3%. So this is one of the examples where I'd be very curious to see what made their numbers turn out this way. I think safe to say at least 95% of hockey fans would say it's more likely that the Rangers make the playoffs than the Devils. But again, whatever numbers they're using to drive these predictions have the Devils above the Rangers as far as playoff probability goes. The Caps and Islanders being pretty even, I don't hate at all. I think the Caps have a lot to prove going into the season. I think the Islanders had a really rough start to last year and obviously had some trouble scoring. So it'll be interesting to see where those guys finish, but I'm fine with having them as close together as they are in this wheel. Canes at 82% I think is fine. They're maybe the strongest team in the division, again, in my opinion, up there with the Rangers, but no problem with the Canes being as high as they are. Pittsburgh, fine. Philly's fine, but these two are really the standout ones, right? It's pretty interesting that they have the Devils at a higher probability to make the playoffs than the Rangers, but that's the Metro. On to the West and the Central, the Avs at 91%. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with that. Chicago, another one I don't think is going to get much argument. Interesting to see that they have this big of a difference between the Wild and the Blues. For me, I think the Wild are still a playoff team, but I think they take a step back with losing Cam Talbot and Kevin Fiala. It'll be interesting to see how much of their offense Kirill Kaprizov can still drive. They obviously have some young pieces there that are coming in despite the cap trouble they're in. So Minnesota should be a fun team to watch, but I don't know that they're that much better than the Blues. And in my opinion, I think the Blues are probably the better team, at least to start the season, until Minnesota's young guys prove that they can then still produce enough offense. Arizona, another team I don't think anyone's going to argue. Nashville, I think, is fine. Winnipeg's fine. I might have them a little bit higher up, but again, that's just me. And then Dallas at 58.3, I think is fine as well. I believe I had them in my 5th slot for the Central as my second wild card, so completely fine with that. But again, would be interested to see what the numbers are that drives this, that has Minnesota as the second highest versus the likes of St. Louis, Nashville, and Dallas. And on to the Pacific here. The Pacific was, I think, the one that I had the least comments on. The only point that I don't necessarily agree with personally is the Vegas one, but again, Vegas is such a hard team to judge because we don't know what their goaltending situation is right now. If Logan Thompson comes out and plays well, they're probably a better team than Vancouver, but if they struggle in net, I think Vancouver's probably the better team there. Again, for me personally, I'd probably have Vancouver a little bit higher, probably up there around the same line as LA. But again, that's just me. I have a lot of faith in Thatcher Demko. I think Pettersson's going to have a bounce back year. I think as long as they can stay healthy, a full season under Boudreau, they should be a pretty competitive team, and I would expect them to make the playoffs. But again, we have 82 games ahead of us, so we'll see what happens there. Seattle I'm okay with. San Jose I'm okay with. Edmonton, Calgary. Interesting that they only have Edmonton at 70%. I think maybe they're a little bit concerned with Jack Campbell's numbers, which is understandable considering he really only had a couple of good months with Toronto and the rest of the season was pretty lackluster, but I think Edmonton will be fine. It was interesting, actually. I was listening to another podcast earlier today, and they were discussing the betting odds for teams over-unders for their point totals for the year, and Seattle's was, I think, at 81.5 points or 80.5 points. So I don't know what data the sports books are working with, what Money Puck here is working with, but interesting to see Seattle that high for me. I don't know that they're going to reach that 80.5 point total. If I was taking that bet, I'd definitely be taking the under. So we'd love to see the data they're using once again to compile these. Just really quickly here, going through the remaining rounds from round 2 to winning the Cup. Interesting that they have so much confidence in Boston for sure. Again, I think Boston's one of those teams that if they make the playoffs, I think they have a chance at making a good run, but I don't know that they have the depth of other strong teams in the Atlantic, like the Tampas, the Floridas, the Torontos. But maybe they're assuming that, if they do make the playoffs, their roster's healthy and kind of clicking on all cylinders. So we'll see there. Everything else here kind of looks reasonable from what I can tell. What else? I'm still so mind blown that they have New Jersey at this high of a probability to make the playoffs. And I mean, even giving Jersey a 4% chance to win the Cup feels pretty outlandish to me. But again, I don't know what numbers they're using to compile this wheel. So definitely interested to see what they have in place for Jersey. Everything else here looks pretty normal as far as the other rounds goes. Obviously, it funnels based on the teams that they have making the playoffs, but Calgary at 8.3% feels pretty heavy too. Obviously, they have a lot of talent. Again, I'm one of the people that thinks they improved from last year, but 8.3 seems pretty heavy. I mean, that's the highest team in the league. They have them above the Avs, above the Leafs, above Florida. So some pretty interesting stuff here. Let me know what you guys think down below. Obviously, this is not my data. Again, a huge shout out to Money Puck for all of the data that they provide to us hockey fans. If you don't follow them, again, on Twitter, a really good Twitter follow, especially if you like, crunching numbers and seeing the data behind the game. It's all pretty interesting to me. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this down below. We're just a couple days away here from the start of the regular season. We have another episode of the Hockey Time podcast coming out here in a couple days. So yeah, let me know your thoughts below. Excited to see where these flesh out by the end of the year. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Jersey does end up making the playoffs. That'd be pretty exciting for them. But yeah, leave your thoughts in the comment below. Thanks as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Feel free to subscribe. It is free, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.